Hello, curious minds, and welcome to this intellectual journey. Today, we're diving deep into the work of a man who didn't just write literature, he built entire universes with words. A man for whom a library could contain the infinite and a mirror could be a gateway to the abominable. Imagine for a moment that time isn't a straight line, but rather a garden of forking paths. Or that the entire universe, in all its complexity, is contained within a tiny glowing point in a basement. Or that you listening to me right now are not one but many. These aren't just modern science fiction tropes, these are the obsessions of a master. Today, we're going to deconstruct the legacy of Jorge Luis Borges, the blind librarian who saw the hidden structure of reality. We'll analyze his labyrinths, his mirrors, and the profound metaphysics he used to change literature forever. Before we dive in, a quick note. To bring this narration to life, I've used artificial intelligence tools to generate the images you see. Think of them as a canvas, a way to illustrate the ideas and the atmosphere of what we're discussing. They won't always be a literal representation, but rather a visual accompaniment to spark your imagination along with mine. I sincerely hope you enjoy it. Jorge Luis Borges was born in Buenos Aires in 1899. He was a scholar, a polyglot, a man who lived, quite literally, among books. His life was marked by a fascinating paradox. As his physical sight faded into total blindness, his internal vision, his ability to construct complex worlds, grew sharper. He wasn't a systemic philosopher. He didn't write dry treatises. He was a short story writer, a poet, and an essayist. But in his astonishingly brief and dense texts, he condensed the greatest problems of Western and Eastern philosophy. Borges played with metaphysics like a child plays with building blocks, creating impossible structures. To understand his legacy, we can't start with his biography, but rather with his obsessions. And his first great obsession is one that defines the human condition, perplexity, the labyrinth. When Borges thinks of a labyrinth, he rarely envisions one made of hedges or walls. The Borges labyrinth is conceptual. It's a structure that traps us not by its physical barriers, but by its rules. It's the labyrinth of the desert, the labyrinth of a single straight path from which we cannot escape, or the labyrinth of knowledge itself. The canonical example is the Library of Babel. Borges imagines the universe as a library composed of an indefinite and perhaps infinite number of hexagonal galleries. It contains all possible books, all combinations of letters and symbols. In this library, you'll find the book that tells your life story, the one that tells of your death, the one holding the cure for cancer, and billions of volumes of pure typographical junk. The problem isn't a lack of information, it's the overwhelming excess. It's a data labyrinth. The tragedy of the library is that the truth is there, but it's inaccessible, lost in the noise. It's a perfect metaphor for our internet age. We have all the information in the world in our pockets, yet finding the truth, the meaning, remains a Herculean task. We are lost in the library. The inhabitants of the library, the librarians, go mad. Some search for the total book, which holds the key to all others. Others destroy books, believing they are eradicating falsehood. They are metaphors for dogmatists and purifiers. Borges shows us the despair of infinite knowledge. Borges's labyrinth, then, is an intellectual trap. It's the very structure of perplexity. But not all his labyrinths are of space or knowledge. Some, the most unsettling ones, are of time. Here we must discuss the Garden of Forking Paths. The story is presented as a spy mystery, but its core is an astonishing philosophical revelation. The protagonist, Yudsun, must transmit a secret. Yudsun visits a sinologist, Stephen Albert, who reveals the secret of his ancestor. His ancestor had wanted to build a labyrinth and write a novel. He failed at both, or so it was believed. The truth is, the novel was the labyrinth. The Garden of Forking Paths isn't a labyrinth of space, it's one of time. It's a novel that postulates that every time a character faces a dilemma, they take all options simultaneously, creating different futures, different timelines. In one universe, you're listening to me. In another, you close this video. In yet another, you were never born. All these possible futures exist. Borges wrote this decades before Hugh Everett's many worlds interpretation was seriously proposed in quantum physics. It's an astonishing metaphysical intuition. The labyrinth, for Borges, is reality itself, with its infinite possibilities. We are trapped in a single present, but we are the result of one of infinite past choices, and we're heading towards one of infinite future choices. Then there's the labyrinth of identity, as in The House of Asterion, where the Minotaur narrates his solitude from the center of his labyrinth, awaiting his redeemer, Theseus, who for him is not an enemy, but a liberation. Borges redefines the monster. The Minotaur isn't evil, he's tragically unique. He's alone, his labyrinth is a psychological prison. It makes us ask, who is the true monster? The one who is trapped or the one who comes to kill him? Finally, there's the labyrinth of the infinite, that of numbers. In The Book of Sand, Borges describes a book with an infinite number of pages. You can't find the beginning or the end. The pages are numbered but randomly and changing. The book becomes a monstrous obsession, an obscene thing that consumes its owner. It is again the horror of the unmanageable infinite. The Borges labyrinth is a tool to show us the limits of our reason when faced with the infinite. Leaving the labyrinths behind, we enter his second great obsession, one he himself confessed filled him with horror: the mirror. For Borges, mirrors are abominable, like copulation, because they multiply the number of men. The mirror doesn't just reflect reality, it casts doubt upon it. It creates a double, an other, and this idea of the doppelganger, the German word for a ghostly double, is central to his work. Who is the real self? The one on this side of the mirror or the one on the other? This question is at the heart of his famous ultra-short piece, Borges and I. It's a meditation on public versus private identity. In Borges and I, he separates the writer Borges, the famous one, the one to whom things happen, from the personal I, the one who walks through Buenos Aires and enjoys coffee. In the end, he confesses, "I do not know which of us writes this page." It's a fundamental identity crisis. The mirror shows us that we are not a simple unit. We are a collection of selves. The self that works, the self that loves, the self that fears, and all of them vie for control. The mirror is also a doorway to other worlds. Borges cites a heresy that states the world we see is a distorted reflection of a true world, Plato's world of forms. We are the copy, not the original. But the masterpiece that uses the idea of the copy and the mirror to create a metaphysical nightmare is Tlön Akbar Orbis Tertius. This story is arguably his masterpiece of speculation. The story is an investigation. The narrator Borges discovers an article in an encyclopedia about a mysterious country, Ukbar. Investigating further, he finds that Ukbar is an invention of a secret society, which in turn invented an entire planet, Tlön. Tlön is a fascinating world because it is a world of pure philosophical idealism. Idealism, in short, is the belief that the mind and ideas are the fundamental reality, not matter. To be is to be perceived, as philosopher Berkeley said. In Tlön, objects don't exist if no one thinks of them. A lost object can reappear if someone remembers it with enough force. The language in Tlön has no nouns, only verbs, because everything is an act of perception, not a static thing. At first, Tlön is just an idea, an intellectual game in an encyclopedia. But then, fiction begins to bleed into reality. Objects from Tlön start appearing in our world. First a compass with strange symbols, then a cone of impossibly heavy metal defying our physics. The most terrifying part is that humanity, fed up with the disorder of reality, begins to be seduced by the order and symmetry of Tlön. People start adopting its philosophy, its language, its architecture. The idea begins to devour the world. The story ends with a chilling line, "The world will be Tlön." Borges gives us a warning: an idea powerful enough, an ideology, a shared fiction can erase reality. The copy, the reflection, can destroy the original. The Borges mirror, then, is not a passive object. It's an active agent of doubt. It questions our identity, as in Borges and I, and it questions our reality, as in Tlön. It is the symbol of uncertainty. And this uncertainty leads us directly to the philosophical heart of Borges' work, his fascination with metaphysics. His stories aren't just stories, they're thought experiments. First, let's clarify, what is metaphysics? It's the branch of philosophy that asks the biggest questions, the ones that are beyond physics. What is real? What is time? What does it mean to be something? Do we have free will? Does God exist? Borges doesn't answer these questions. What he does with genius is take them literally and see what happens. What if time wasn't linear? The garden of forking paths. What if idealism were true? Tlön. His other great metaphysical exploration is perception and memory. And for this, we have to talk about Funes the Memorious. It's one of his most cited and most profound stories. It's the story of Ireneo Funes, a young man from Uruguay who, after an accident, is left crippled, but with a terrible gift. He cannot forget anything. His perception has become infallible, and his memory is total. Funes remembers every leaf on every tree he saw, every cloud in the sky at every instant, every grain in the wood, every sensation of every second of his life. His memory, Borges says, is a garbage heap. It sounds like a superpower, but it's a curse. Funes is incapable of thinking. Why? Because thinking, Borges tells us, is to forget differences, to generalize, to abstract. To understand the word dog, we must be able to forget the differences between all the dogs we've seen. Funes cannot. For him, the dog at 3:14, seen in profile, is not the same dog at 3:15, seen head-on. They are two unique and unrepeatable objects. His mind is a chaos of unconnected details. It is the failure of abstract thought. With Funes, Borges gives us a lesson in epistemology, the theory of knowledge. He tells us that to be intelligent, to construct concepts, we need the ability to forget, to filter, to simplify reality. Total perception is madness. If Funes represents the chaotic infinite of details, the other side of the coin is the Aleph. Here, Borges explores the infinite, but not as chaos, but as a point of total convergence. Pantheism. Pantheism is the metaphysical idea that all is one. The universe and God are the same thing. Every particle, every star, each of us is a part of a single divine consciousness. In the story, the narrator, Borges, discovers a small iridescent point, barely 2 or 3 centimeters across, under a staircase in the basement of a house in Buenos Aires. It is the Aleph. Looking into this Aleph, he simultaneously and without superposition sees all points in the universe. He sees the tiger, he sees the sunrise on the Ganges, he sees the oceans, he sees his own entrails, he sees the letter someone wrote, he sees the woman he loves, he sees the Aleph from all points. He sees the totality. It's a mystical, overwhelming experience. It's the infinite contained within the finite. It's the antithesis of Funes. Funes sees all the details but cannot connect them. The Aleph is the union of all details in a single instant. It's total comprehension. Borges uses this metaphysical idea to discuss the inadequacy of language. After seeing the Aleph, the narrator says, "What I saw was simultaneous and what I shall transcribe successive, because language is that way." How do you describe the infinite with finite words? Another recurring metaphysical idea is the eternal return. The idea, popularized by Nietzsche, that time is cyclical and that we will live the same life with every detail over and over again, infinitely. Borges explores this in The Lottery in Babylon. In this city, everything is decided by a lottery. First it's a game, then it becomes mandatory. The lottery decides who is rich, who is poor, who lives, who dies. Chance governs everything. In the end, the lottery, the company, becomes so omnipresent and secret that it's indistinguishable from God or fate. Life is a game of chance. This is a critique of the idea of a God who plays dice, or the idea that there's no free will, only chaos. There's also the theme of circular time. In The Circular Ruins, a man withdraws to some ruins to dream another man into existence, to create him with the sheer force of his mind. It's an act of divine creation. After much effort, he manages to dream his son into being and inserts him into reality. His only concern is that the son will discover he is a dream, a simulation. The dreamer fears his son will discover he cannot burn because he is only an image. The story ends with a perfect metaphysical twist. A fire surrounds the original dreamer. He walks towards the flames, resigned to die, but the fire doesn't burn him. And then he understands, with relief, with humiliation, with terror, that he too was a mere appearance, that another was dreaming him. It's the perfect labyrinth. A man dreamed by another man, who in turn is dreamed by another. Where does reality begin? It's the idea of simulation, the doubt of whether we are real or just a God's dream. Borges doesn't give answers, he just poses the perfect question. But Borges' genius isn't just in what he said, but in how he said it. He invented his own genre. Borges wrote stories that read like academic essays. He wrote reviews of books that didn't exist. This trick, erudite fiction, lends his most fantastic ideas a veneer of realism. He cites real authors alongside invented ones, real books alongside fake ones. It makes you doubt what's real and what's part of his game. It invites you into his intellectual labyrinth. The best example is Pierre Menard, author of The Quixote. This is a short story disguised as a literary review. The narrator analyzes the invisible work of Pierre Menard, a 20th century French writer. Menard's masterpiece is astonishing. He wrote The Quixote. He didn't want to copy The Quixote. He wanted to rewrite it word for word, line for line, but from the perspective of a 20th century man. And Borges, with exquisite irony, says that Menard's version is richer than Cervantes's. Why? Because when Cervantes wrote truth, whose mother is history, it was a common rhetorical phrase. When Menard writes it, it becomes an astonishing philosophical idea about historical relativism. The story is a brilliant game about authorship and reading. Borges tells us that a book's meaning isn't just in the author, but in the reader and their historical context. Reading The Quixote today isn't the same as reading it in 1605. The work changes because we change. This style also relies on brevity. Borges is a master of economy. His stories rarely exceed 15 pages. But in those 15 pages, there are more ideas than in 500-page novels. It's dense, conceptual, lean prose. He uses allusion and reference as shortcuts. He assumes his reader is intelligent. He mentions Schopenhauer, the Gnostics, the Arabian Nights. He weaves a web of cultural references that enriches the text and connects it to the entire literary and philosophical tradition. And of course, there's the irony, a subtle intellectual humor. He pokes fun at pompous critics, nationalisms, and even himself. His work is a serious game. He plays with the most dangerous ideas, but with a smile. Borges also uses recurring symbols that act as his signature. The labyrinth, the mirror, the tiger, the dagger, the library, the color yellow. These symbols create a coherent universe, a Borges world that we recognize from one story to the next. The tiger is a symbol of perfect yet dangerous beauty, the infinite contained in a single form. The dagger represents destiny, the barbaric and fatal instant that shatters civilization. Each symbol is a key to his thought. This unmistakable style, this blend of essay and fiction, of metaphysics and detective mystery, is what makes his work so addictive. You don't just read Borges, you solve Borges. And this brings us to his legacy. Why is this blind, erudite Argentinian writer so monumentally influential? Because in many ways he predicted the 21st century. He was the father or grandfather of literary postmodernism. Postmodernism is the movement that doubts grand narratives, that mixes genres, that is self-aware and ironic, that plays with the idea that everything is a text. That is Borges. Authors like Umberto Eco owe everything to Borges. The labyrinthine library in The Name of the Rose is a direct homage to the Library of Babel. Eco's idea that books speak to other books is the Borges intertext. Italo Calvino and his invisible cities are also echoes of this speculative fiction. In philosophy, thinkers like Michel Foucault cited Borges in the very first line of The Order of Things, Les mots et les choses, using a supposed Chinese encyclopedia from Borges to question our systems of classification. Philosophers like Jean Baudrillard, who spoke of simulacra and hyperreality, the idea that the copy has replaced the real, think Disney World or social media, are working on the territory Borges mapped in Tlön Uqbar. Borges's legacy is so vast that many writers of the subsequent generation, the Latin American boom, like Garcia Marquez or Vargas Llosa, had to react to him, either by imitating him or rebelling against his intellectual and fantastical style. And his influence reaches cinema. The film Inception, with its dreams within dreams, impossible architecture, and mental labyrinths, is a deeply Borgesian concept, an echo of the circular ruins. The film The Matrix also resonates with Borges. The doubt about whether our world is real or a simulation, a dream of another, is the central question of Tlön and the circular ruins. And as we mentioned, the Library of Babel is the most accurate prophecy of the internet age. A place with all knowledge, but where truth is a perfect hexagon almost impossible to find among millions of false hexagons. We live in a Borgesian labyrinth. Borges's legacy, then, isn't a set of answers. It's a method. It's the elegance of doubt. He taught us that the deepest philosophical ideas don't have to be boring. They can be the stuff of a detective story, a fantasy. He turned metaphysics into a literary genre. He armed us with the tools of perplexity to navigate a world that, now more than ever, seems like a labyrinth of fictions, mirrors, and ideas competing to be real. In the end, reading Borges isn't about finding the exit from the labyrinth. It's about learning to admire its architecture. It's about understanding that perhaps there is no exit, and that the search, the question, the elegant doubt is the true destination. Borges, the blind librarian, saw the structure of our reality more clearly than anyone. He saw time, identity, and the infinite, and instead of giving us a map, he left us the most brilliant stories ever written. He left us with vertigo and beauty. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the heart of the Borgesian infinite. It's been a pleasure exploring these fascinating ideas with you all. I'd love to know what your favorite Borges story or idea is. Is it the library? Is it Funes? Is it Tlön? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy these deep dives that connect philosophy, art, and literature, please consider subscribing so you don't miss our next journey. I'm your host, and I'll see you in the next labyrinth.